Bills Mafia, we need to talk, because ESPN just dropped something that is going to make your blood boil, and honestly, it should. Bill Barnwell put out his annual rankings of every team's running back, wide receiver, and tight end groups across the entire NFL, and when the dust settled, your Buffalo Bills landed at 29. 29 out of 32 teams. Only the Cleveland Browns, the New York Giants, and the Miami Dolphins finished worse. That is not a typo. That is ESPN, in print, telling the world that James Cook, DJ Moore, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, and the rest of this group rank below the Carolina Panthers, below the Tennessee Titans, below the Washington Commanders, below the Las Vegas Raiders. We are going to break down exactly what Barnwell said, why a huge chunk of it is genuinely defensible, and why other parts of it are, in the most respectful way possible, absolutely ridiculous. Let's start with the part of this ranking that's actually fair, because giving credit where it's due matters even when we're mad. Barnwell opened his section on Buffalo by praising James Cook, and rightfully so. He called Cook's vision, tackle-breaking ability, and explosiveness at the second level as good as anybody else in football, which is a massive compliment from a national analyst who doesn't hand those out lightly. The one real knock against Cook is ball security. He fumbled 6 times during the regular season and added a 7th in the divisional round loss to Denver, a fumble that came on Buffalo's opening drive of that game and arguably swung the entire trajectory of the contest. That's a real documented issue, and it's fair for Barnwell to flag it. But here's where the analysis gets a little too aggressive for my taste. Barnwell suggested Cook's fumbles were significant enough to make him generate negative expected points added as a rusher last season, despite averaging 5.2 yards per carry and scoring 12 touchdowns on the ground. Folks, that's the NFL's rushing champion we're talking about. Run through the list of backs in this league right now. Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, sure, that's a real conversation at the very top. After that, you're talking about Devin Achane, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, and James Cook, all sitting in roughly the same tier. Cook has put together back-to-back-to-back genuinely excellent seasons with 28 combined rushing touchdowns over the past 2 years and a rushing title to his name. I don't know why Barnwell is suspicious of him here, but this is a top 5 back in this league. Full stop. And let's not act like the running back room stops at Cook either. Because if we're talking about entire offensive weapon groups, the depth matters. Ty Johnson is one of the better third down backs in football, a legitimately excellent receiving option out of the backfield for Josh Allen. Raheem Davis, is an excellent kick returner who showed real efficiency in limited work during his rookie season and wants more opportunity between the tackles. This running back room is genuinely deep and genuinely good, and treating it as part of the 4th worst offensive weapon group in the league feels like it's missing the full picture. Now let's get into the receiver room, because this is where Barnwell's case actually has some real teeth, even if I don't agree with every word of it. He wrote that beyond Cook, it remains difficult to get excited about Buffalo's receiving core even after the addition of DJ Moore, and he raised real questions about whether Moore is still a difference maker as he turns 29, pointing out that 2025 was comfortably his worst season as a pro as he fell down the priority list in Chicago's offense. Here's my pushback on that specific point. The reason Moore fell down the priority list in Chicago wasn't about his own decline as a player. It was about Ben Johnson's offense evolving and other pieces taking precedence in that specific system. And despite that reduced role, Moore still came up huge in genuinely important moments, including a go-ahead touchdown catch in a playoff game against Green Bay. People tend to forget what DJ Moore looked like with real volume and real opportunity. Whether that was balling out with Justin Fields in Chicago a few years back, or his time in Carolina under current Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady, where he topped 1,100 receiving yards in multiple seasons, despite genuinely brutal quarterback play surrounding him for nearly his entire tenure there. Is he the exact same explosive player he was in 2020 and 2021? Probably not. He's getting closer to 30. But this is a receiver with sure hands, year in and year out, real ability to separate on deep routes, and the kind of smooth, technically sound route running that Josh Allen himself has praised repeatedly. He's a genuinely good player. And I think Barnwell's skepticism here is overcorrecting based on one down year that had more to do with scheme and opportunity than declining talent. Where Barnwell's argument gets harder to dispute is the rest of the receiver room behind Moore. He pointed out that Khalil Shakir, while a solid, reliable slot option over the past 2 seasons, may have lost some explosiveness due to the high ankle sprain that bothered him in 2025. Keon Coleman has been a real disappointment relative to where he was drafted, and Joshua Palmer simply did not hit any new heights after arriving in Buffalo last year. I'll be honest with you, Bills Mafia, the Palmer signing has been a miss. I've said it on this show multiple times. It was not a good value deal by Brandon Beane, and I'm hoping Palmer can find his footing and reclaim something resembling a legitimate WR3 role this season. The reality is that Moore is the clear number 1 and Shakir is the number 2 in terms of target share, and everything after that comes down to whether Keon Coleman can finally deliver on the promise that made him a second-round pick. And here's a genuinely interesting development on that front. We've heard the same story every offseason about Coleman being a different player, but this year there's actually been real evidence backing it up. During minicamp, Coleman was reportedly getting past the second and third levels of the defense using genuine speed rather than relying purely on his size and physicality the way he did as a rookie. That would represent a real evolution in his game, because he didn't come into the league with elite timed speed, if he's actually developed that dimension. This could be a meaningfully improved version of Keon Coleman in 2026. Joe Brady has put real stock in this, going as far as saying nothing in Coleman's career has been better for him than Brady becoming the Bills' head coach. There's a lot riding on that bet paying off. One more name worth mentioning here, because Barnwell completely left him out of the conversation entirely. Rookie receiver Skylar Bell hasn't gotten a single mention in this entire write-up, and a lot of people around the league simply don't know about him yet. He's a player who's shown real ability so far in OTAs, and as a beneficiary of playing alongside Josh Allen, there's real reason to believe he climbs the depth chart as the season progresses. Don't expect him to put up 600 yards and 5 touchdowns as a true rookie, but keep his name in your back pocket. Now let's get to the tight end room, because this is genuinely where I think Barnwell's ranking falls apart the most. He acknowledged that Dalton Kincaid made his first Pro Bowl and was more efficient in 2025, but said the projections of him becoming the high-volume man coverage beater the Bills have craved have yet to be proven given his ongoing injury problems. Here's the thing. The PCL issue is genuinely behind him heading into this season, no surgery needed, full recovery on track. But more importantly, let's actually look at what happened statistically when Kincaid was healthy and on the field last year versus when he wasn't. The splits are not subtle. Josh Allen's completion percentage was significantly higher with Kincaid in the lineup. The yardage was better, both on a season basis and a per-game basis. The touchdown-to-interception ratio improved with Kincaid on the field, even though notably the same number of interceptions were thrown across the 5 games Kincaid missed as across the 12 games he played. Allen posted a quarterback rating of 111 with Kincaid on the field compared to 91 without him. And the Bills went 10-2 in games Kincaid played compared to 2-3 in games he didn't. That's not a small sample noise situation. That's a real structural impact on this entire offense. And here's the number that should end this debate entirely. Kincaid wasn't just more efficient last year. He was the single most efficient tight end in the entire NFL. First in yards per route run. First in targets per route run. First in yards per target. First in first downs per route run. 10th in yards after catch per reception. This is a dynamic, man-coverage beating weapon who, when healthy, ranks among the very best at his position in all of football. Is he definitively better than Brock Bowers or Trey McBride? That's a fair debate. Those guys are spectacular. But there honestly aren't very many players at the position who are clearly, definitively better than Dalton Kincaid right now, and treating him as a question mark rather than a genuine asset feels like it's underweighting exactly the data that should matter most. Now let's get to the line that's really driving this entire ranking. Because Barnwell closed his section on the Bills with this, for all the money Buffalo is spending at receiver, the question still lingers. If Allen needs to throw for a critical first down to win a game, who should he trust to get open? And every team ranked above the Bills, in Barnwell's view, has at least one receiver that fans would point to as the obvious answer. The Bills, he argues, still somehow do not. Hold on. What did the Bills trade a second-round pick for this offseason if not exactly that kind of player? DJ Moore was acquired specifically to be a legitimate separator, a field-stretching threat who can also win with the ball in his hands after the catch. You can debate whether that trade represented good value or not. That's a fair conversation. But the idea that the Bills don't have an answer to that question is directly contradicted by the very transaction this front office just made. And we just walked through the data showing Dalton Kincaid can absolutely be trusted to move the chains when healthy. Yes, he had that one infamous drop against Kansas City a couple years back, but that was a genuine prayer of a deep ball. A leap and hope situation that a young player should be forgiven for. He's a different, more polished player now. Between Moore and Kincaid, this team has two legitimate answers to exactly the question Barnwell is posing. Ranking this group 29th in the entire league is respectfully wrong. Now let's talk about who's actually ranked above the Bills in this exercise. Because once you stack the teams side by side, the whole thing starts to feel even more indefensible. The Carolina Panthers, who finished at 28, just one spot above Buffalo. Their receiver room is Tetairoa McMillan, Jalen Coker, and Xavier Legette as the top options, and their tight end group is widely regarded as one of the worst in the entire NFL. The Washington Commanders sit above the Bills too. Terry McLaurin is a legitimate number one, no argument there, but after him, name a running back on that roster that strikes fear into anybody. Their tight end situation runs through Zach Ertz at this stage of his career. The Las Vegas Raiders are above Buffalo as well, and beyond Brock Bowers at tight end. Their receiver room doesn't feature a single name that jumps off the page. The Tennessee Titans are ranked above Buffalo, and while Tony Pollard is a genuinely good back, their receiver core is full of unproven and disappointing names, and their tight end situation has been in real flux. And then there's the Houston Texans, who do have real receiver depth with Nico Collins and a talented rookie class, I'll give credit there, but their tight end is a name that hasn't been relevant in years, and their backfield doesn't strike fear into anybody either. Look, Bills Mafia, I understand the methodology here. Barnwell explicitly strips away Josh Allen, strips away Joe Brady's play calling, strips away the offensive line, and tries to evaluate these groups in a vacuum as if every team had identical surrounding context. That's a legitimate analytical exercise, and it explains some of why this group doesn't pop the same way it would if you factored in everything that actually makes this offense special. But even granting that framework, ranking this specific collection of players, a rushing champion, a newly acquired veteran separator, a reliable slot receiver, a tight end who was statistically the most efficient at his position in all of football, below teams with objectively thinner rosters at multiple spots, is a swing and a miss. This Bills offense is going to be excellent in 2026. James Cook is a top 5 back. DJ Moore gives this team a legitimate field-stretching weapon. Khalil Shakir is a reliable chain mover. Keon Coleman might be entering a real breakout. Dalton Kincaid, if he stays healthy, is one of the most dynamic tight ends in football. And there's a rookie in Skylar Bell that the rest of the league hasn't even noticed yet. 29th in the NFL. Absolutely blasphemous, And I think this group is going to spend the 2026 season proving Bill Barnwell wrong one Sunday at a time. That's the show for today. I had to get that rant out of my system because this ranking was a genuine disrespect to your Buffalo Bills. Give me a follow, subscribe to the channel.